Year 4 under Brent Venables about to get underway. We heard from the head coach in Atlanta most recently, and now we hear from Parker Thune. We always appreciate Parker stopping by. It's On 3, it's Rivals, OU Insider, and of course, each and every day, KREF Sports, noon to 3 Central Time, folks. You can catch Parker right there talking Oklahoma athletics. Parker, appreciate you being here.
Yeah, always, Mark. Crazy to think it is year 4, and we've been doing these since the last year of the Lincoln Riley era, if I recall correctly.
We have been, absolutely. So let's start with the expectations of this football team, because I got to say, maybe I'm coming to the same conclusion as many, that from the outset of this offseason, coming from where we were last season, and then knowing how daunting this schedule is, and again, I would hope at some point in the future the SEC would grind these schedules down a little bit more in an equitable way, because Oklahoma really got hit with it these 2 seasons to start, that there was a thought that, how can they keep up in the SEC, especially considering what we saw last year. But what we did see was a lot of people, including myself, once I did a deep dive on the personnel, despite the scheduling challenges, I'm coming out at 9-3 for this football team, and a lot of people are pretty optimistic.
I will say the general tenor at SEC Media Days in Atlanta last week was one of positivity for Oklahoma. And I think a lot of that has to do with the addition of John Mateer, certainly, and his offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, but also just the stability that Oklahoma has on the defensive side of the ball. Bringing back 8 of 11 starters, and you do lose 3 good ones to the NFL, no doubt. Danny Stutzman, Billy Bowman, and Ethan Downs, but Oklahoma is going to have several players that are more than capable of stepping into those shoes and at least approximating the production that you got from those guys a season ago. Peyton Bowen, former 5-star recruit, he's going to step into Bowman's old role. Oklahoma brought in Florida State transfer Marvin Jones, himself a former 5-star recruit, to fill the void that Downs leaves behind. And then you have Kip Lewis, a guy that's been groomed alongside Danny Stutzman for the last 2 years, ready to step into that role as the heart and soul, the centerpiece of Oklahoma's defense. So there's certainly much to be excited about on that side of the football. You really are rolling the dice with this offense, though, and I think a lot of that is because you have no way of knowing how good Oklahoma actually was or had the potential to be in 2024, because that team was so crippled all year. So it looks so radically different personnel-wise from a year ago, and even that base that you feel like you would have something to go off in judging what lies ahead this year based on what happened last year, what that offense looked like last year, it still feels like such an inexact science trying to peg what Oklahoma is going to be offensively in 2025. But it's always nice therein to have the FBS's returning leader in total touchdowns and John Mateer at the center of it all. So, yeah, there's a lot of optimism regarding this football team and what they can be in the SEC this fall.
Yeah, absolutely. The uncertainty for any football team, that percentage has been raised considerably over the last few years, obviously, with the transfer portal. So, John Mateer, the statistics are jaw-dropping. So if that's the surface analysis for a lot of people, as soon as he showed up on the scene and was signed, okay, Oklahoma's got a capable quarterback. This guy can run and throw, 44 touchdowns. And then a lot of people, including myself, did at least that next layer to say, okay, power competition, not the best numbers, only a couple examples of that, but still, could there be concerns? Then there might be folks like you who did the next, or maybe about 8 more layers of deep dive in regards to watching the tape, understanding maybe some personnel deficiencies there around him, those sorts of things. So how much are those numbers skewed possibly, or maybe not as valid in terms of his performances a couple times out against upper tier competition?
Yeah, well, I mean, 44 touchdowns is 44 touchdowns, right? You account for that many touchdowns anywhere, you're a player. And so look, is John Mateer going to be a Heisman contender in 2025? I haven't touted him as such. I don't know that I would go that far, but I think it's reasonable to expect, right, that Mateer is going to have the type of year productively that can get Oklahoma to that 8-9, even 10 win threshold, because I think the reality of his situation at OU is that he's not going to have to do all of the things he did at Washington State a year ago to get that program to 8-4 in the regular season. If he accounts for 30 touchdowns in 2025, I think you're looking at an Oklahoma team that can hang with anybody in the SEC and that could be knocking on the door of a playoff berth. So there's not going to be as much that is demanded of Mateer in terms of output, in terms of production. And it'll be interesting to see whether he can live up to the billing. I'm not even really sure what that billing is. It might actually be higher nationally for Mateer than it is locally. And I think a lot of that is because so many Oklahoma fans are just a little hesitant, a little reticent to get their expectations too high after what happened in 2024. But John Mateer is a fantastic football player. He's tough. He's bulked up, 6'1", 225 pounds. So physically, he certainly looks the part. He's got the arm talent. He's got the creativity to his game. I worry a little bit about the low release point when he throws the football. That's something that Dylan Gabriel had to get adjusted to at Oklahoma when he came over from UCF in 22 and 23. You know, he's a shorter guy, and so he had to learn to create throwing angles or throwing lanes for himself, I should say, to avoid those bat downs at the line of scrimmage. So I'll be interested to see whether that's something that John Mateer struggles with in the early stages of the season for Oklahoma. But there's no reason why this guy, especially given the familiarity with Ben Arbuckle's system that he brings to the table, shouldn't be a capable trigger man in an Oklahoma offense that should be vastly improved from where they were a year ago.